Tensions on the Korean peninsula have been at the very high levels lately, with the North hinting that it has developed a nuclear warhead small enough to fit atop a missile. Most experts doubt that claim, but that hasn't stopped the country from threatening attacks on South Korea, Japan, and even the U.S.
Now, North Korea's young leader Kim Jong-un has baffled observers with his aggressive nuclear posturing. I asked VOA reporter Steve Herman in Seoul if he has ever seen such severe tensions in the region. Here is what he told me.
This is as high a tension level as we've seen on the Korean peninsula, perhaps since the armistice was signed in 1953. But what we should emphasize is it's been a war of words so far, a lot of posturing.
Our nuclear strength is a reliable war deterrent and a guarantee to protect our sovereignty.
The United States will do what is necessary to defend ourselves and defend our allies, Korea and Japan.
But there's nothing as severe that has happened so far as occurred in 2010, when there was the sinking of a South Korean naval vessel and an artillery shelling on a South Korean frontier island that killed 4 people, including 2 civilians.
Now, when you talk about the level of rhetoric that we're hearing, especially coming from North Korea, what's the purpose of all of this?
Well, one theory is the purpose is to cause panic here in South Korea, to cause enough economic damage that this new, what would seem to be an untested government of President Park Geun-hye would say, okay, we've got to stop this because tourists are fleeing, hotels are losing money, the Kaesong industrial complex is shut down. We have more than 100 small and medium-sized enterprises now that are fearing bankruptcy. None of those things have happened, really, except for the possible closure of the Kaesong industrial complex. But there are some indications that if it continues at this severe of a level for a longer period of time, then there could be actually some economic damage to the South Korean people and a lot of businesses.
And you yourself, you're actually in Seoul now, and that's where you're based as a correspondent for us. What's been the response among the people there?
Pretty calm. There is no sign of panic buying, as North Korea is alleging in one of its latest broadcasts from Pyongyang. Foreigners are not fleeing. Again, another allegation that North Korea is making. One concern is we're approaching the Golden Week holidays at the end of the month for the Japanese, and it could have some significant impact on that Golden Week holiday period.
Now, Steve, in addition to North Korea's threats against South Korea, its threats of an attack, it's also said that it's ready to launch a nuclear attack on the United States. How real is that threat?
North Korea perhaps has a small number of nuclear weapons. It certainly has not miniaturized them to put them atop an intercontinental ballistic missile. And there's no evidence that North Korea actually has an ICBM capable of reaching the mainland of the United States. The biggest threat here in Seoul, there's more than 1,000 pieces of long-range artillery pointed at this city. The metropolitan area has about 20 million people. But that threat has existed for many years, many decades, actually.
What kind of role is China playing in all of this?
Well, of course, without China, North Korea probably would have ceased to exist a long time ago. China has been North Korea's only remaining significant ally after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, what is the relationship right now? We're not exactly sure. There's been some statements coming out of Beijing that seem to express an unprecedented level of frustration, at least publicly, from the Chinese in regards to the attitude of the North Korean government. And we can only imagine what's being said behind the scenes, because China prefers to conduct its tough diplomacy in that regard, especially with other countries that it's been friendly to behind the scenes, rather than coming out and openly criticizing them. But China, of course, has been helpful recently in these UN Security Council votes on sanctions, which, of course, has obviously angered North Korea. And that relationship may hold the key to a resolution of all of this.
And in addition to China, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says Washington is willing to help negotiate a peaceful resolution of tensions. But in order for that to happen, the North must take steps toward abandoning nuclear weapons.